May 14th, 2026. That is very soon. Right. The S&P 500 index, which includes the 500 largest American companies, closed trading at 7,501.24, which is a historic high in the 96 years of the index's existence. Well, there has never been such a high level. Never before have American stocks soared like this. These are the 500 largest companies, never before. And now look at what was happening at the same time. Well, on the same day, yes, a tanker was sinking near the coast of Oman in the Strait of Hormuz. In Kyiv, they were burying 24 people, 3 of them children. In Jerusalem, Anton Jago's coalition is simply falling apart. In Beijing, Donald Trump and Xi Jinping are finishing a 3-day summit. The press wrote that there was no breakthrough. It's unclear what kind of breakthrough they were expecting. Kostya. And despite all that, it was on this day that there was a surge. And day after day, record surges. Well, you could say it's nonsense, you could say it's market madness, you could say it's a disconnect from reality, but that's not the case at all. Not even close. Not at all. You just need to look up from the headlines and see what's above the surface, where the news war is raging, but underneath, something completely different is happening. There's work going on, quiet work, without cameras, without victories or defeats, just work. The world, not every actor in it, but enough of them, make choices. To resolve what can be resolved, not to fight to the bitter end, not to humiliate your opponent, not to wage war until total victory. Behind that phrase, there are often so many cemeteries you don't even want to finish it. The market, which always looks not just at today, but 6 months or a year ahead, takes this quiet work into account and values it at 7,500 points. Today, I want to tell you exactly what the market hears, because if you hear it, you'll look at the news feed differently. You're constantly being distracted by the left hand, by the right hand, while the real action is happening with the other hand. And then we'll talk about history, a story that is extremely close to my heart, and I really hope it will be significant and close to you as well. This is the story of Israeli hostages, about how we don't abandon our own. Okay, why is the market at a historic high? Even though, it's really, well, right? The number 7,501 is not about faith in Trump, not about faith in Xi. It's about faith in one simple thing. Human ingenuity isn't going to stop. Look at what has happened over the last 7 days. Cerebras, a company that makes chips for artificial intelligence, gained 68% in value on the day of its IPO. Its market capitalization is just a bit under $95 billion. A few hours after trading opened, the young company was worth as much as half of Boeing. Cisco is old, boring, and corporate. Cisco, the very same company that seemed to have long ago turned into a sleepy cash cow, announced that its forecast for AI infrastructure orders is rising from $5 billion to $9 billion in just 1 quarter. By 70% in just 1 quarter. The Magnificent Seven, the 7 main tech giants of America, grew by an average of 2.5% in a single day. 6 out of 7. What does that mean in plain language? Let me translate. It means that right now, at this very second, in Texas, Arizona, Ohio, and Virginia, data centers are being built that, in 2 years, will house artificial intelligence capable of doing things that, back in 1924, were considered absolute unscientific fantasy. This means that millions of tons of steel, concrete, copper, and silicon are being turned into infrastructure that will increase labor productivity by 1,020. In some cases, 100-fold in completely different fields. Tens of thousands of engineers are designing the future and capital is pouring in. When the market puts $7.5 trillion on top of its previous highs on this, it's not betting on politics. It's betting that people haven't forgotten how to invent. And you know what? It's right. Well, okay. Back to earth, so to speak. China and the US have agreed on the main event. I want you to hear it not the way it's presented by CNN, Fox, or, God forbid, Russian television, or Ukrainian, a monopolistic channel. I want you to hear it the way history hears it, the way history will hear it, the way history will remember it. Donald Trump arrived in Beijing with a delegation that included Elon Musk and Tim Cook, Fink, the head of Boeing, Kelly Ortberg. 3 days of negotiations. Xi Jinping publicly warned Trump about Taiwan in front of the cameras. Trump publicly insisted on tariffs in front of the cameras. And in the evening, on the last day, they sat down for dinner. And at that dinner, according to leaks from both delegations, the outlines of what polite diplomats call a working agreement began to emerge. The outlines were as follows. China resumes purchases of American agricultural products, soybeans, corn, pork, and beef, with volumes amounting to tens of billions of dollars per year. This isn't a gesture of goodwill, gentlemen. It's the market. China needs to feed 1.5 billion people. The American farmer knows how to produce cheaply and well. No one is doing anyone any favors. Both sides win. They did a little posturing. They put on tough faces and then after some effort said, all right, fine, now let's get down to business. Next, some American tech companies like Apple, Tesla, and certain mid-level semiconductor manufacturers get what's called confirmed access to the Chinese market. Well, that means they can sell without having to reveal their secrets. It's by no means a complete capitulation of Beijing to Silicon Valley, but it's also not the Iron Curtain that people were afraid of just 6 months ago, because 6 months ago everyone was talking about an Iron Curtain. They were talking about clashes between our Navy and their Navy. I don't know who's exactly ours or theirs near Taiwan. A pragmatic middle ground. What is not critical to China's national security remains open. In exchange, the United States lifts some tariffs on consumer goods. Not everything. Strategic sectors, again, national security, chips, and rare earth metals remain protected. But irons, sneakers, consumer electronics, medicines return to normal prices for the American consumer because it was hitting them. Well, it affects the Chinese, but also us, and it's still unclear who is affected more. The TPI, which is now hitting 6% per year, will start to cool down in 2-3 quarters. This isn't a victory for Trump. It's not a victory for Xi. You know what this is, right? It's like, okay, we showed off a bit. Again. But now, let's get serious. This is the solution. And here's what I want. I want you to remember from this show. If you remember one sentence, let it be this. We are not fighting. We are solving what can be solved, because there is something that cannot be solved. Okay, let's put that aside and solve what we can solve. 2, definitely, the youngest and most hardworking people on the planet. 2 countries with a combined GDP of about 40 trillion, we have 24, yes, well, about 42 maybe, trillion dollars. 2 armies, either of which is capable of wiping out half the planet. Easily. They sat down at the table and said to each other, listen, we both know that a war between us will end badly for everyone. Let's solve what we can solve. A year ago, serious people, generals, political analysts, former ministers, were publicly writing that by May 1926 we would be shooting near Taiwan. Today is May 15, 1926, and no one is shooting. Trump's plane is flying back to Washington and Xi Jinping is heading to his residence. Tomorrow in Iowa, a farmer will receive an order for 50,000 tons of soybeans, and the day after tomorrow in Zhengzhou, an Apple engineer will launch a new assembly line. There's more prose here, of course, than poetry, I understand, yes? But if you understand who makes history work, you understand that the world is held together by prose. Before we move on, let's take a short break. If you're listening to this conversation and thinking, why doesn't anyone else explain things to me like this? Everyone tells me things differently. That's because in most media, things aren't explained as they really are, but in a way that's needed for ratings or for the owner. Problems sell better than solutions. Conflicts are interesting, they stir people up, while solutions are usually gray, boring. They are just solutions. If you want to understand more deeply how freedom is structured and how it works in the real world, not in slogans, not in mechanics, I have a roadmap to freedom. This is a step-by-step guide I've developed over years. The link is below this video. It's a major breakthrough in social sciences. This happened in 1961 when the great and, unfortunately, still only known to specialists, Andrew Galambos founded his Institute of Free Enterprise in Los Angeles. Galambos unfortunately fell ill and died quite young, so his works were collected and supplemented by his students. I was incredibly lucky. In my life, I took part in this work, and now the roadmap to freedom is ready. This is the introduction. In the new science that Galambos founded, he called it the science of will, evolutional science, and your humble servant calls it the science of freedom or about freedom. Truly, this is a science about the relationships between individuals who possess freedom and will, that is, about you and me. In the description of this video, you will see an offer to download my book. Do it. And through that same email, for 10 days, you will receive a video lesson every day. At 10 or 9 in the morning, a video lesson on the newest science in the world, the one that will allow you to earn more profit, by the way, from your business, to become truly popular in any social setting or group you're in, and to strengthen relationships in your family. What I want to say is, studying the science of human will, done well as entertainment, I tried to make it entertaining, is necessary in order to live better, richer, and more joyfully. The link is once again below this video. And one more thing. If you like our conversations, share them with those who you think are drowning in negativity. We won't make the world better by selling fear. We'll make it better by explaining how solutions work. Well, let's move on now. Let's move on to Iran and Hormuz. So, the most important thing, the most explosive point on the planet, or let's say the topic of the week, the Strait of Hormuz. Since February 28 of this year, there has been a war in this area. The US and Israel are striking Iranian targets. Iran is launching missiles at Israel with 7,693 wounded. By the way, in Israel, there are 12 dead soldiers and 23 dead civilians. Hundreds of ships are stuck in the strait. Oil prices are jumping. That means 15 to 20%. Every $15 to $20, not percent. Probably every time news comes in about another tanker being seized. And now the question that no one wants to answer directly, who benefits from all this? Not Iran. Its economy is in ruins and young people are taking to the streets. Well, not Israel, where soldiers are dying and where Netanyahu's government is collapsing due to internal contradictions. Not because of military victories. Not Saudi Arabia, whose entire export goes through the Hormuz Strait. Not the United States, where the rising price of gasoline is killing Trump's approval rating. But this is absolutely not in China's interest. About half of the oil imports that fuel the Chinese economy go through the Hormuz Strait. Every day of war in the strait. This is a blow to China's GDP, to Chinese industry, to the Chinese middle class. And this is where things get interesting. After the summit in Beijing, Xi Jinping got what he actually wanted more than Taiwan and tariffs. He received an invitation to be a mediator. Trump, who understands that his own approval rating is more important to him than pride, gave Beijing the green light. The countermeasures that are currently being worked out, believe me, are being worked out in Doha, Muscat, and Ankara at the same time, and they look something like this. The US and Israel are gradually winding down the active phase of the operation. Iran agrees to hand over the remaining highly enriched uranium, anything above 20% under international control, let's put it that way. Maybe to China, maybe somewhere else. Iran retains the right to enrichment up to 5%. That is, it keeps the right, but only up to 5%. This is the level used for civilian nuclear power. It's not for weapons. It's what Japan, South Korea, and Brazil do. International inspectors, the IAEA, or maybe a special commission from China and Russia, are given the right to conduct periodic inspections. There is no permanent presence, which Iran most likely won't agree to, But regular audits, once a quarter, once every 6 months, I don't know, Iran will bargain to the end. But something like that will happen once every 6 months, right? And most importantly, no one gets what they originally wanted. Let them say this is bad, and I'll say this is wonderful. Israel wanted complete disarmament of Iran and regime change, but won't get it. Saudi Arabia wanted Iran to be crushed and never threaten Riyadh again, but won't get it. Iran wanted recognition of its nuclear status and the lifting of all sanctions, but won't get it. The United States wanted the complete capitulation of Tehran, but won't get it either. However, everyone will get what they need. What is necessary? Peace. Unjust, imperfect, not eternal, not everlasting. Peace, plain and simple. And this, dear friends, is what adult politics is. Adult politics is not the victory of good over evil. Adult politics is the least bad of the realistically achievable.
Вариантов.
If it still hasn't sunk in yet, let me say it again. The least bad of the realistically achievable options. When you understand this difference, you start reading the news like an adult. And what about in 5 years? So we've done this, right? 5 years have passed, as the Ukrainians say, right? And in 5 years, they'll attack us again. So what about here? I'm not referring to Ukraine right now, but to Hormuz. Here, I'll try together with you, so to speak, to jump into the future, because it's important not only to put out the fire today, but also to build the house in such a way that there won't be a fire tomorrow. In 5 years, the Strait of Hormuz will mean much less for the world economy than it does today. Why? We'll explain now. The United Arab Emirates are already expanding the Habshan-Fujairah pipeline, which brings oil to the entrance of the strait. By 1929, the capacity is planned to be 3 million barrels per day. Well, that's a quarter of all Iranian leverage. Saudi Arabia is completing the east-west pipeline to Yanbu on the Red Sea. In 2030, yes, by 2030 they should have it built. Another 2 million barrels per day bypassing Hormuz. That's already 3 plus 2. I don't have a calculator on hand, but that's somewhere around 5. Iraq is working on a route through Turkey, through Jordan, Aqaba. It's long, expensive, yes, politically complicated, but it's moving forward. Liquefied natural gas from Qatar is shipped by tankers through the Malacca Strait to Asia, and from the U.S. directly to Europe and Japan. The share of Qatari exports going through Hormuz is slowly declining. Add to this the American shale revolution, which hasn't gone anywhere. Add Brazilian deepwater. Add new fields in Guyana and Namibia. Add, yes, I know, many of you don't like this word, solar and wind power, which is slowly but surely reducing the share of oil in Russia's energy mix. Add solar and wind power, which is slowly but surely reducing oil's share in the energy mix. Solar and wind power really are slowly reducing oil's share in the energy mix. His leverage will melt in his hands, and then Tehran becomes a pragmatic regional power trading oil, gas, pistachios, carpets. Yes, Iran has a great economy if you remove ideology. Or turn into, well, I don't know, a bigger North Korea. An angry tiger. Or whoever is angry over there. Hungry, isolated, and of no interest to anyone. Honestly, I'm betting on the first option. The Persians aren't idiots. Because I believe in one thing that Andrew Galambas explained. Probably, well, at least explained to me better than anyone else. Not personally, but through his books. When a person has a choice between prosperity and ideology, in the long run, they choose prosperity. Not immediately, not easily. Sometimes it takes a generation for them to choose. Iranians or Persians are an ancient, educated trading people. Tehran's youth want to study at Berkeley, not die in Yemen. Let me say it one more time. Tehran's youth want to study at Berkeley, not die in Yemen. Tehran's intellectuals read the Berlin School of Philosophy, not the Ayatollah's collections. Tehran's bazaar wants to trade with the world, not guard the Strait of Hormuz, and give them another 5 years. You'll see. I was right. Let's go back to America. To Cisco. To the most boring number, the forecast for orders for artificial intelligence infrastructure. As I already told you, the forecast rises from 5 billion to 9 billion. Gentlemen, this is not about Cisco. It's not even about artificial intelligence. It's about the fact that right now the biggest infrastructure build-out is underway in the United States, a structural build-out not seen since Eisenhower, like the highway system of the 1950s. Well, just think about it. Nvidia sells chips worth 200 billion a year. AMD sells 40 billions. Cerebra's just entered the market with a capitalization of 95 billion. Cisco is raising its forecast by 4 billion CE. Vertiv is a manufacturer of cooling systems for data centers. Breaking records. Vertiv. Quanta, a company that lays cables and builds substations on order. They can't even say how many years ahead they're booked. Equinix, Digital Realty. Data center operators rent every square meter 5 years in advance at exorbitant prices, because tomorrow it will be 4 times more expensive. Well, add builders to that. Add welders, electricians, concrete workers, plumbers. Add design engineers, programmers, operators. Add transformer manufacturers, who, by the way, are in very short supply. Their salaries have gone up by 50% over the past 2 years. Add the energy sector to power these data centers. We need to build massive amounts of generation capacity. Natural gas, nuclear. For the first time in 40 years, nuclear power plants are being built again in America. And not just one, that's hundreds of thousands of jobs. These are thousands of new companies that didn't even exist 5 years ago. This is the most powerful influx of capital into the real sector in the world. Nothing like this has happened anywhere else. And you know what happened? And you know what's most wonderful? No one ordered this to happen. Trump, Biden, Congress, no one. The Ministry of Economy, the Planning Commission, no. It happened because millions of people, investors, engineers, entrepreneurs, each on their own, without any orders, saw an opportunity. And they went after it. That's called the market. And when someone tells you, and they definitely will, that the free market doesn't work, or that capitalism has stopped working, or that the government should direct the economy, remember 5 billion turned into 9 billion in just 1 quarter, without a single government order or government directive, simply because millions of free people saw the same future and decided to build it, because they decided it was good for them. Let's sum it up. The market is at a historic high, because people haven't forgotten how to invent. China and America sat down at the table and came away with a solution where both countries get what they need to prosper. Iran and the Strait of Hormuz are on the way to a resolution. No one will get everything they wanted, but everyone will get peace. In 5 years, the Strait of Hormuz will no longer be the center of global energy. Iran must choose between prosperity and being left out. Cisco and hundreds of other companies are launching the biggest infrastructure project of a generation, without a single order from above. If you connect all these lines into one, you'll get a phrase that I want you to remember. We are not at war. We solve what can be solved. We are not at war. We solve what can be solved. This is not a pious slogan. It's a statement of the fact that in a mature world, in a world that's over 60 years old, since the end of World War II, that has lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Berlin Wall, September 11th, and COVID. By the way, adults, in the end, after all sorts of things, so to speak, after a splash of cold water to the face, sit down at the table. It's not because they suddenly started loving each other, even though Trump always claims he loves everyone he negotiates with. Oh God, we're such friends. I just can't. He was also best friends with that little chubby Korean guy, but it's because they understand the alternative is worse for everyone. And also because beneath the noise of conflict, there is a deep human desire to live, to build, to love, to come back home. And that desire exists in North Koreans, in Iranians, even among Chinese people, not to mention South Koreans. Berdyaev wrote that history is shaped by individuals, not the masses. Today, history is moved by the decisions of specific people, an official who exchanged prisoners, an engineer designing the next generation of chips, a president who agreed to talk instead of issuing an ultimatum, a farmer who will ship soybeans to Shanghai tomorrow. And before that, he told his president, "Do whatever you want, but I need to sell this soybeans." Personality. Each of us is a point where freedom is exercised. Each of us, by deciding what to read, whom to believe, what to learn, how to raise a child, adds a stone to the building we call civilization. The construction is ongoing. The camera doesn't show it. So it's ongoing. And now let's talk about something I said that's close to my heart. Stories that probably no other country or army in the world has had. June 8, 2024. 11 a.m. local time in the middle of the day, not at night, not in the fog, but at noon, in direct sunlight. Israeli Air Force helicopters rise above the Nuseirat refugee camp in the center of the Gaza Strip. 4 hostages are being held in 2 5-story residential buildings, 200 meters apart, 8 months, 246 days. And 8 minutes later, they're already flying home. There is one principle on which all of this is built, one simple principle. It's neither modern nor American. In Hebrew, it's called pikuach nefesh, saving a life. It's 2,500 years old. Everything you're about to hear grew out of it. And it's the only thing that distinguishes a free society from any other. But we'll get to that at the end. We'll start with the most important thing, with 5 stories, 5 operations, where a single person turned out to be more important than an entire army, more important than a diplomatic scandal, than risk, than cost, than anything else. And I promise, in the last story, in October 2025, you'll understand one thing. A country that never leaves its own behind will never lose. Not because it is strong, but because it has something worth existing for. So listen, the first story, Ori Megadish.
Megadish. 30.
October 30th, yes. October 30th, 2023. 23 days after October 7th. No one knows yet who is alive. No one knows how many are in captivity. And no one, neither in Israel nor in the world, believes that anyone will be rescued. And then, the first report. 19-year-old Ori Megadish kidnapped from the Nahal base. She was rescued on October 30th. A joint operation by Shin Bet, Special Forces, and the Israel Defense Forces. Naturally, no details are being given. They still aren't giving any, like how many people were involved, where she was rescued from, what the cost was, and so on. One thing is known. In Sheba Hospital, her father was the first to see her. She was sitting on the bed, bandaged. She came over and said, "I'm okay, Dad." That was the first crack in the wall of terror. The first proof that there was a way out. After that, everyone started waiting. And waiting? The doors will die. Like no one. The second story. Fernando Marman and Luis Har, February 12th, 2024, Rafah. Second floor of a residential building. 2 elderly men are in one room. Fernando Marman, 60 years old. Argentinian Jew who immigrated to Israel. Luis Har, 70 years old Israeli, also of Argentinian origin. Both were kidnapped from kibbutz near Yitzhak, 128 days in captivity. Operation Golden Hand. 1 hour and 45 minutes after midnight, Shin Bet Special Forces. Yamam unit fighters, air support. A pinpoint strike on neighboring buildings where the guards were stationed to cover the retreat. The Special Forces burst into the room. They shout in Hebrew. Luis Har raises his hands and speaks, also in Hebrew. "I'm one of you." In 20 minutes, both are in Tel Hashemer. Fernando's daughter, she'll say one word to the press later. Nes. Miracle. In Hebrew. That was the second proof, not a one-off anymore. Now it's a system. The third story, Operation Arnon, Nuseirat, June 8, 1924. Here's the operation I started this video for. By June, the hostages had been in captivity for 246 days. They were already there. Most of them were men and young women. And for many, it is unknown whether they are alive. The army and Shin Bet have been planning the operation for 4 months. 4 months. They map out the apartments, the dishes, the photos. They study the guards' routines. They select people. In 2 5-story buildings in the Nuseirat refugee camp, 200 meters apart from each other. According to intelligence, there are 4 of them. Noa Argamani, 25 years old, the girl the whole world saw in the video on October 7. She is the one being driven away on a motorcycle from the Nova Festival. She reaches out her hands and screams, "Don't kill me!" Her photo has practically become a symbol of October 7's. Almak Marian, 21 years old, a guy from the same festival, Ashlam Ziv. 41 years old festival security guard, Andrei Kozlov, 27 years old citizen of the Russian Federation, came to Israel for vacation, nice vacation, was kidnapped like everyone else. The operation is called 7 Years, and then it was renamed to Arnon in honor of the man who paid for it with his life. 11 a.m. It's the middle of the day. The fighters arrive on civilian motorcycles and cars. These are white Toyotas, the kind usually used by UN convoys. The special forces jump out. They break into 2 apartments at the same time. In the first apartment is Noa Argamani. The fighters shout, Israeli army, we've come for you." But at first, Noa doesn't believe it. Then she looks up and sees one of the special forces soldiers in full gear looking at her through his scope, and he says, "You're going home. Home." In the second apartment, there are 3 guys. The Hamas members open fire. Chief Inspector Arnon Zamora, the commander of the Yamam assault team, is shot in the head. He dies on the way to the hospital, but he made it in time. All 4, Noah, Almak, Shlomi, Andrei, jump into the helicopters. 8 minutes. They're in the air. In an hour, they're on Israeli soil. It's a scene that probably everyone remembers. Noah jumps onto the concrete at Tel HaShomer. She runs across the concrete. Barefoot, she throws herself into her father's arms. And her father has just learned that today is exactly the anniversary of her mother's death. That's how God arranged it. Andrei Kozlov, a citizen of Russia from the city of Oriel, hugs his Russian mother, who flew to Tel Aviv on October 6 and has not left Israel since then. For 8 months, every morning she would get up and say, "He's alive." And on that day, June 8, she turned out to be right. This operation was later studied, and it is still being studied in military academies around the world. The U.S. Army, the British SAS, the French GIGN. No one has done anything like this in terms of complexity and precision. 4 hostages rescued alive, 1 person killed, 8 minutes. And now the 4th story, the one that is closest to you, to the Russian-speaking viewer. Sasha Trupanov, February 15, 1925, 28 years old. Programmer, born in Nizhny Novgorod. In the 90s, the family immigrated to Israel, kibbutz Nir Oz. October 7th, Hamas enters Nir Oz. Sasha's father, Vitaly Trupanov, was killed in the first minutes. He was protecting his family. Sasha, his mother Elena, his grandmother Irina, and his girlfriend Sapir Cohen are captured. They are taken to Gaza. In November 2023, during the first exchange, 3 women are released. His mother, grandmother, and girlfriend. Sasha remains. Elena Trupanova, Sasha's mother. For 498 days, she has attended every rally in Tel Aviv with the same sign, Sasha. We are waiting. In Hebrew, in Russian, in English. Every week, every Saturday, at Hostages Square. February 15, 2025. The first phase of the exchange. Mom, a friend. As part of this phase, 6 hostages are being released. One of them is Sasha. Seen in Rome. Red Cross minibuses. The door opens. A thin, bearded young man in a tracksuit gets out of the bus. 16 months in captivity. He doesn't immediately realize where he is. Then he sees his mom. Yelena runs to him. He freezes. Then he hugs her and doesn't let go. A minute, 2, 3, 10. Here's the fifth story, coming full circle. October 2025. And here is the finale. All the surviving hostages are returning home. Donald Trump arrives in Tel Aviv. He is standing on the runway at Hatzerim Air Base when the last 20 survivors step onto Israeli soil. The country hasn't slept for 72 hours straight. Everyone is watching. And on January 26, 2026, the final moment. Rano Gvidley, whose body Hamas hid in their sector for 2 years, is brought home. Israel negotiated for the body for 9 months. More than 250 people were exhumed at 2 cemeteries. They tested DNA, they found it, they brought it back. They buried them. The cycle is complete. Everyone who went missing on October 7th, every single one of them. They're either at home or buried in Israeli soil. Hamas didn't leave anyone behind. No one was lost. Every last one of them.
פיקוח נפש.
I promised you at the beginning to come back to these words. In Hebrew, they mean saving a soul. In the Talmud, this is a principle that overrides almost all other commandments. You can break Shabbat to save a single life. You can break the fast, kashrut, any ritual rule. Because whoever saves one life saves an entire world. This is in Jewish books, in the tractate Sanhedrin, page 37. This is the very code by which Israel goes after each and every one, everyone, including Andrei Kozlov, a citizen of the Russian Federation, who came here on vacation and ended up at the festival, including Sasha Trupanov, a programmer from Near Oz, including Fernando and Luis, elderly Argentinian repatriates, including Noah, who was taken away on a motorcycle. And here is a parallel that I can't help but draw. Hamas took 251 people hostage. 70 of them are dead because they were held in such conditions that they didn't survive. What army in the world goes after every single person for 4 months? What country launches an operation for the sake of 2 old men? In a foreign city. What government today, in 2026, sends teams to 3 cemeteries in Gaza just to find the remains of 1 fallen soldier? This is the oldest and purest expression of that truth. The life of a specific person. A person is more valuable than a flag, a ceremony, a treaty, or the economy. More valuable than the state. It is precisely because Israel recognizes this that it exists and remains a free country. This is a lesson that goes far beyond Israel. Any society that stops going after every one of its own ceases to be free. This applies to America, Europe, and each of us in our own circles. Families, communities, friends. This is actually a society built on the golden rule. It's not a slogan, not a theory. It's action to go after every single one. Every single one. If this video has added something to your understanding of what a decent society is, share it. With those you love, not a like, not a heart, a personal message with one phrase, watch this, it's about us. This is the kind of work that no algorithm does. It's something we do together. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. There's also a second channel called Roadmap to Freedom. Subscribe to that one too. Every morning you'll get a 10-minute video from me, short and packed, about 3 things that make our lives complete. How to make your business work at its maximum potential. How to make your family adore you without manipulation, genuinely without any quid pro quo, and how to make your circle of friends grow, not shrink year after year. 3 pillars of a normal human life. Every morning, 10 minutes for free. The link is under this video. And one last thing. Every time you pass knowledge on to others, you continue this story. I'm not the one continuing it. You are the one continuing it. See you tomorrow. I'm sure there will be something to talk about.